Hey everyone, David here back again to review another episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and this time this is for the episode entitled One of Us. One of Us, One of Us. And one of the best things about this episode was the return of Cal, played by Kyle MacLachlan, who is kind of like recruiting his own little brotherhood of special beings here. I can't call them Inhumans because this episode makes it known that these people, including Cal himself, are kind of like experiments, so they don't count as the same type of beings that Skye and even Gordon are, and even Reyna. So he goes around recruiting these people that were at one point apprehended by S.H.I.E.L.D. and trying to liberate them and promise them freedom in exchange for retaliation against Coulson and his team for taking away Skye. And I liked this angle. I liked seeing Kyle MacLachlan play Cal once again because I really liked his performance. I liked how he balances out remorse along with sheer craziness and being completely out of his mind. And I just like his little moments that are very quotable and very well performed by the actor because he you can tell he's having an awful lot of fun with the role, but at the same time he knows that he needs to tap into this kind of crazy to deliver a really good villain in the form of this character who is, I believe he's called Mr. Hyde in the comics, and you can see that in this episode where he goes from being kind of playful and cheery in a psychopathic way, but then in an instance when he starts thinking about what happened with Skye and how how she was taken away from him by S.H.I.E.L.D., he can snap. He breaks that mug in the diner, and so far he's one of my favorite characters to come out of season 2. And the people that he recruits were also pretty interesting. Some more than others. Like the lady with the blades on her hands, I think she could have been interesting at first, but by the end of the episode, I felt like she was kind of weak. My personal favorite that stood out the most amongst this little brotherhood, so to speak, because the reason why I keep emphasizing the word brotherhood is because I got an X-Men vibe from this. I felt like Cal was Magneto, and these were the rogue mutants that were teaming up with him for the greater good, but instead they were turning out to be evil. And I felt like out of all these, the one that stood out to me the most was the one that had the Bane mask at first, and then he takes it off, and then he has this ability to be able to knock out people's nervous systems with his voice. And that was a really impressive scene, not just because of the effects on his face, but also the birds flying out of the sky. It was a really impressive image. Things culminate in a setup that he prepares for Coulson in his hometown of Wisconsin, where he finally meets Skye for the first time since the first half of the season where Whitehall got killed. And things were about to come to a head when all of a sudden Gordon comes in once more to swoop up Cal, which makes things kind of interesting because one, much like Cal asks him, why did he not take Skye instead of Cal, and why is Gordon going all over the place swooping people up? I mean, he's making a reputation out of that. So who is he exactly working for? Is he working for that person that he called up saying there's another, and he's getting these people for for some particular reason? And could it be that maybe he went after Cal through the suggestion of Reyna, because Reyna was the first person that he rescued, so maybe it was Reyna who said, there's this other guy named Cal who's the father of this real Inhuman that you're looking after, so if you find him, you will probably find her, and maybe there'll be a reason why he chose her over Skye. But so far, very interesting stuff happening with the Inhuman material. Now, before Skye actually does show up in that climax along with May, she is actually being monitored through that little containment room inside the bus, trying to figure out how to control her powers and exactly what's going on. And to help out with that, both May and Coulson bring in Andrew Garner, who's a psychologist, and also happens to be Melinda May's ex. So that was a very interesting dynamic. And here he is played by a character actor named Blair Underwood. He was in a couple of shows. He was on that show, The Event, which was very short-lived. And he's been on TV here and there. He's mainly a TV actor. But I thought he nailed the role because he was really likable, he was very charismatic, he had chemistry with not just May, and showed you why they were together in the first place, and also why they kind of broke apart. Like, he gave a legit reason for that. But he also had a surprising amount of chemistry with Skye, so much so that even her character was able to budge in a natural way to give him information about what's going on in her mind, and therefore helps him trying to resolve this issue while dealing with her psychological and physical issues, trying to control these powers before managing to hurt anybody. And this was an interesting dynamic that I really hope they bring back this actor. He leaves at the end of this episode, and that was a bit of a bummer because I really liked him. But here's to hoping that maybe he has a reoccurring guest role, not just throughout this season, but maybe in future seasons. But let's go back to Sky for a moment. Man, just when you thought you couldn't feel any more bad for her and how much of a turn she has taken throughout the entire series. Like, I love. She was very likable in this episode because she maintained some characteristics that we've had Sky do in previous, not only in the previous episodes of this season, but even in that first season where she would use sarcasm and humor to try to deflect, just like Garner states in this episode during her sessions with her. And I like that she still tries to maintain that old personality about her, even though deep in her mind she knows things are completely different now. She's practically not even not human anymore. So it's nice to see different layers to Sky. And like I said, just when you couldn't feel any more bad for her, even when she tries to hold her energy in and keep it inside of her, that energy will still find a way to destroy things. And by the end of the episode, you realize that now she's destroying herself physically on the inside. She's shattering her organs, her bones, and man, you just feel like she's a ticking time bomb. And what makes it worse is that she doesn't want this to happen. This is all completely unintentional. At least until she finds a way to harness her powers and become Quake from the comics as that regular Inhuman. That's probably going to be part of the Inhuman movie. And what was it? 2017. I think that's when the movie's coming out. 2017, maybe 2018, or 2019. I don't know. One of those 3 years. But anyways, they're doing a great job at setting up the first protagonist Inhuman, because I can tell that some of the other Inhumans are going to be villains like Reyna, but so far I think they're doing a good job at layering Sky and making her a very compelling character, and one that I can really feel for her because she is not only at risk of damaging the people around her, but also herself. The only other interesting thing of note to talk about is the entire secret between Bobby and Mac, and now Mac holding Hunter hostage, because after what he did to him, there's no way he's going to forget that, so he has to hold him hostage in a room somewhere that is completely unknown to Hunter. And it didn't get that much screen time as it did before, but there was enough there revealed to talk about, mainly there at the end, where it turns out that Mac and Bobby are working for like an external project of S.H.I.E.L.D. that is still part of S.H.I.E.L.D. but not completely S.H.I.E.L.D. Even Mac calls it New S.H.I.E.L.D. And then we see a much more modernized version of the S.H.I.E.L.D. logo that looks edgier and I don't know, it's kind of cooler, I guess, but much more modern, definitely. And so I'm wondering, what is this? And some people have speculated that Hawkeye is actually the person in charge of this external division of S.H.I.E.L.D. And both Clark Gregg and forgot the boy's name, Jeremy Renner, have hinted at a possible cameo for Hawkeye in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And that cameo, as well as this particular division, would explain what Hawkeye was doing the entire time S.H.I.E.L.D. went down during Winter Soldier, because he's part of this entire organization as Black Widow. But of course, in Winter Soldier, we saw what Black Widow was doing, but we don't know what Hawkeye was doing. The other 4 Avengers, they have their own thing. Captain America, we obviously saw in that movie. Tony Stark was probably working on Ultron, working on the specs for that prototype. Thor was in Asgard, and Bruce was probably along with Tony, figuring certain things out, considering that they're BFFs essentially. So it's interesting to see that of all these Avengers who we can make up some kind of agenda for them during these events that were transpiring in Winter Soldier, the only one that we don't really know about clearly was Hawkeye. So it would be interesting to see if he was the one in charge of this particular division, and what exactly is their deal about wanting this information from that cube that Coulson has. I mean, are they worried that Coulson might be compromised as well as his team? Is this like a backup, or what exactly is this? And I'm hoping they flesh that out before season 2 runs out. And this was one of those episodes that, as hard as I tried, I couldn't find anything in it that I didn't like. I would say that it's almost perfect, except, much like I stated in my Kingsman review, even if there was nothing that I didn't like about something, whether it be a movie or a video game or an episode of a TV show, that doesn't mean that it's completely perfect. So even though I loved the majority of the things that happened in One of Us, with the different elements to Cal and to Sky, and to the addition of Blair Underwood as Mace X, who really contributed to this particular plot, as well as the big revelation of this grander thing happening with S.H.I.E.L.D., I wouldn't consider it a perfect episode, but still, I feel compelled to give one of us a low 9 out of 10. Definitely one of the standouts of this back half of season 2, and one that just keeps the pacing going with S.H.I.E.L.D. of wasting no time of revealing things, and man, I'm loving it so far. So let me know what you guys thought of this episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Do you think there's going to be a Hawkeye appearance before the end of season 2? We got Edwards James Olmos coming in next week, I believe, from what I heard. I didn't look at the sneak peek, but I've heard in an article somewhere that Edwards James Olmos is going to be guest starring in S.H.I.E.L.D., and I believe it's next week that he's going to be appearing. So there's a likely chance that maybe he's the one in charge of this particular division of S.H.I.E.L.D., but still, I'm hoping for Hawkeye because we really deserve an explanation to what he's been doing. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.